What's up, stranger? Welcome or welcome back, and would you believe we survived 2020? And that's worth celebrating. Good for all of you. Give yourselves a round of applause. I thought the perfect way to celebrate this moment would be to take a look back at 2020 and all the things that we've survived. To do this, we're going to be ranking every month on the traditional S through F tier list, and that way we can find out which one was the worst, and also it'll give us a chance to just recap all the things we've been through this year, because frankly, it feels like it's lasted a decade. And a quick disclaimer, there's obviously going to be stuff that I'm going to have to leave out, just because so much happened in 2020, there's no way that I could put it all into one tier list. I promise I'm not going to maliciously leave anything out. It's just a quick recap of 2020. I'm not any kind of news organization with an agenda. Also, all the months will be ranked relative to each other, because if we didn't do that, they would just all be in F tier, and this video would be shorter than a TikTok. We're going to be going in order, of course, and we'll be starting out with January. So January started off pretty bad. We had Australia catching fire, and then the big World War III scare. And I didn't know this, but apparently so many people went to the Selective Services website that it crashed. People really thought World War III was going to happen. It's also when the pandemic started, but it hadn't shut down the world yet. So January wasn't great, but it wasn't super awful, and we avoided a world war. So I'm just going to put January in C tier. That seems about right. So for February, I couldn't actually think of anything. I even Googled it to see if anything significant happened in February, and there was pretty much nothing. The only things that really happened was Nancy Pelosy became a meme because she tore up Trump's speech, and Harvey Weinstein was convicted, so the virus had technically started, but people weren't really worried about it yet. This is also the month where China banned downloads of the game Plague from their Chinese app store, which I just thought was hilarious because it was being downloaded so much. In light of nothing really going wrong in February, I'm gonna give it an S tier. And that's only because it gets so much worse from here. All right, it's March, baby, and the pandemic is officially upon us. The Black Lives Matter movement is protesting heavily in Louisville, more on that in May, and people just collectively decide that we're just running out of stuff, so they just go in masses to all the supermarkets and buy out everything? What? Our supply chain was never in danger. But this is when toilet paper became the most valuable commodity in the world for like a month, and people were arrested for price gouging toilet paper. You really can't make this stuff up. March gets a D. It's worse than January, but it's not as bad as what's to come. April didn't really have anything crazy or new happen. Pretty much for the rest of the year, the pandemic is a given, and consistently the worst thing happening. This was also the month of Schrodinger's Kim, where everyone assumed that Kim Jong-un had died probably of coronavirus, but North Korea kept insisting that he was alive. This prompted Babylon Bee to write the funniest satirical article that I have ever seen. North Korea reports Kim Jong-un is the most person alive in the universe. Also this month, the government said UFOs were real, and nobody really cared. Dang. This was a wild year. All right, April gets a C. It's not good, but it's not quite apocalypse bad. So in May of 2020, God introduced the Murder Hornets patch, and this was very unpopular and made a lot of users very upset. And honestly, I had forgotten that Murder Hornets were even a thing. Whatever happened to that? Murder hornets appear to be spreading south with a new confirmed sighting in Washington state. Oh, so they're still here. People just collectively decided to ignore them because everything else was getting so much worse. Got it. This was also the month of George Floyd's murder and what prompted the Black Lives Matter's protests of 2020 to really take off, not just in America, but actually around the world as well. So while the circumstances of it were pretty disgusting, the fact that so many people could come together and fight discrimination actually did give me some hope for humanity. Like, that was pretty cool to see. So I've averaged out all the good and bad things, and I've put May in a B tier, simply because of the passion that people had for fighting inequality. Whoever wrote the script for June clearly forgot it was due until the day right before, and so they just copied and pasted things that had happened in other months. The protests and pandemics continue, with nothing crazy or new happening. However, those both suck, so June is placed solidly at a D tier. July also remained pretty unchanged. The world was well on its way to falling apart, and really, this was just the status quo at this point. All the bad things that were happening were just continuations from previous months, carrying over into this month. The only significant thing in this month was a brief bubonic plague scare in China, but at this point people didn't even bat an eye. They were just like, yeah, that seems about right. So because July had no new ways of screwing us, it just gets solidly in a D tier. Still pretty bad, but oh boy, just you wait. It's August, and apparently we're overdue for California being burned to the ground again for like the 12th time this year. Basically, it was just a metaphor for 2020 at this point. It also became political this month. Harris was announced as Biden's running mate, which would set the stage for the rampant misinformation patch coming in November. Stay tuned for that. We also lost Chadwick Boseman this month, so that puts us in an understandable F tier. It's September, and gender reveal parties are sweeping the nations. just like the fires they're causing. Nothing screams the birth of an American quite like explosions, mass destruction of property, and poor life choices. And right at the end of September, we had the presidential debate. Yeah. Remember that?
I'd like
And
you
we
to,
will
Mr.
protect people
President,
with
I'm the
pre-existing
moderator of the
Oh, what little hope I had died that day. For October, Trump got the coronavirus, and that was pretty much it. Wildfires were still sweeping through California, and the pandemic was still crippling the world economy. So, D tier. November was election month. December, we got COVID vaccines. Most of the election lawsuits were overturned. Joe Biden is confirmed as president by the Electoral College. And we got Mr. Beast's YouTube 2020 Rewind. It's certainly not a good month, but for the first time, it was starting to look up. We did it. We made it through 2020. So just for that, I'm giving December an A tier. And that brings us to today. It's a new year. It definitely can't get any worse, and we're almost through all the bad stuff. There's also going to be a lot more of A. Daniels this coming year, and I hope to see you there for every bit of it. So stay home, stay safe, get vaccinated when you get a chance, and most importantly, take care of yourself, strangers. And here is to a new year.